Welcome to podcast 141. Do you want to know how to push past your fears to get to the next level? Stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome, everyone. Today's podcast is for workers and foremen. This is specifically dedicated to you to help you out in your career and in your role. We have a wonderful podcast for you today. I believe you're going to love the content. And I really had an epiphany, and that's what drove this podcast, of what foremen need, what workers need to really progress to their next level, whether that be survey or BIM or, working as a project engineer or field engineer, whatever the case may be. Why do people get stuck? Why do they have a hard time taking that next step? And I had an epiphany on what it takes, so that's what we're going to cover today. And I really just want to say that it's about you being able to do what you want. If you want to stay as a worker, I love that. Be the best worker you can be. If you want to stay working as a foreman, I love it. Be the best worker, be the best foreman that you can be. But if you want to go do something else, there are other skills that you really need. And so I'm excited to talk to you about that today. And real quick, one side note, I want to tell you about just one brief little thing here. I do a lot of personality profiles, and we're almost to the end of our 2 weeks where if somebody likes or rates or comments and posts a review on the podcast, I'll do a personality profile, a player card for you, right? I do a lot of those. And what I notice is that when I do them for workers and foremen who are taking their next step, they're always for an ENFJ. Every single craft worker, every single foreman that comes from the craft that's working on being a field engineer or a superintendent or a surveyor or a project engineer, their personality type is an ENFJ. That means extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging person. And what that means, and by the way, that's my personality style. That means I'm extroverted. That means I'm intuitively thinking in my head a lot. That means I lead with my heart and my gut instinct, not with my head. And then I'm very discerning or certain about what my opinions are. So ENFJ. And I'm looking at this pattern and I'm asking myself, why would we have the same personality type for anybody that is taking their next step from the craft? And I don't know the answer. But I will say that there is a more extroverted tendency and a more people connection tendency among the personality styles that I'm talking about. And what my fear is that there are craftspeople, there are workers and there are foremen out there that might be introverted, or they might be thinking personality types, and they might not have those same traits, and they're not asking to take their next step because of some of their qualities, and they just kind of give up and stay where they are. I hope that's not true. I think it might be true because, like I said, the only personality types I see are the ENFJ. I don't see any, ISTPs. I don't see any, INTJs. I don't see anything but the ENFJ, and that's for hundreds of workers, hundreds of foremen, the same personality type. It's one of the craziest things that I've ever seen. I'm almost wondering if I'm doing it wrong, but I don't think so. So my message is that if you are a worker or a foreman and you happen to stumble upon this podcast or somebody sends it to you, I really want you to take a look at this and ask yourself the question, are you where you want to be? And if you aren't, then ask yourself, what is my next step? What is my next step for the position where I'm headed? Maybe you are a foreman and you're a plumber. Maybe you're a framer. Maybe you're in concrete. Maybe you do flooring, whatever the case may be, but wherever you want to go, there is a path to get there. So please step out of your comfort zone, speak up, and, even email me directly at jason@elevateconstructionist.com. I will personally help you make it to your next step. So I'll cover more about that in the podcast today, but let me first tell you what I'm excited about in life. I'm excited about social media. I'm excited about being able to get content for workers and foremen and field engineers and superintendents and project engineers and PMs, anybody in the construction industry. I'm excited to get information out to you that will help you to get training and to get the certifications that you need to go out and be successful in an addictive and useful and fast way. Meaning as addictive as Facebook, as useful as YouTube, and as fast as Wikipedia. So really excited about that. My mind has been teeming with ideas today. Why couldn't we have YouTube video series out there for welding? Why couldn't we have it out there for form setting? Why couldn't we have it out there for field engineering? The answer is we can, and we're going to start, and I'm going to start pushing this content, and you better keep up because we're going to get it done. So I think by June next year, we're going to have so many courses that it's going to be a pretty popular site. So let me go ahead and just give some feedback. Thank you for everybody who reached out to me on November 21st for my birthday. I think I got hundreds of happy birthdays, and I thought it was fantastic. And I just really felt special that day. So thank you very much. And for all of the well wishes for Thanksgiving. So today's sponsor is Formworks. You can access them at www.formworks.work. And again, I'll explain this in my words because I don't always like to use the scripts. Formworks is an application that they're rolling out in Texas right now and eventually to the entire nation, where they are going to provide a platform that's kind of LinkedIn-like for workers to connect them for opportunities, to connect people together, and to connect them to learning opportunities and a number of other functions. So if you are in the beginning stages of using Formworks, I congratulate you and appreciate you, and you'll start to see a lot more content pushed out through that platform, and I really hope that Formworks does well. Here's a little bit of conflict for you today. You have to force the jump. It won't just happen naturally. That means if you're wanting to jump into a different path, a different role, a different career, you have to force that. You can't let yourself off the hook. You can't take the easy route. Let me explain that right now. But first, I'll tell you a quick story. In getting ready for the field engineer boot camps, it's quite a bit of work. There's 3 books that you have to read. You have to read the Field Engineering Methods Manual. There's online advanced learning content. There's 2 in-day technical trainings that have to happen. You have to learn AutoCAD, you have to learn Revit, and you have to complete a lift drawing and do a bunch of personality profiles. It is an insane preparation. I mean, it takes months to get ready for Field Engineer Bootcamp. And there was this one craftsperson who is going to go to the Field Engineer Bootcamp 2 weeks before going, said, I haven't logged on to my email. I haven't done any of the prereq work. I haven't read any of the books. And I just don't know what I'm doing to get ready. Not in general, but to get ready. And I said, ooh, that doesn't sound pretty good. You might have to drop out. And he stood up, put his shoulders back, and he's like, I will get ready for it. He immediately signed up for PTO for the next 2 weeks, took vacation, and jammed through that information the next 2 weeks. Read all the books, went through all of the criteria, practiced with the total station with the auto level, did a lift drawing, learned AutoCAD, learned Revit, and did everything he was supposed to do, and really wasn't hindered at all because he buckled down and did the work, went to boot camp, and was wildly successful. And so here's my point with that. Most of the time, the craftspeople, the workers, the foremen, are afraid of management level positions because of the technology, the email, the applications, the organization, the communication that we'll have to do, whether it's verbally or in writing or visually or whatever else. And they're really just worried about, all of these technological tools, management tools, these systems that we use, right? So there's a fear there because most of the time they're using tools, they're using their bags, they're working in the field, and they're not working with all of these computers and with these applications and with these communication systems. So there's a fear there, right? But my story is to point this out. There's really no reason to be afraid of it because you can learn it. That's why I told you that story. In fact, you can learn it quickly. What I need you to do is know that you have to force it. Okay, so let me tell you the principle. I was talking the other day with a group of people that were designing a training for foremen, and it was for foremen to go to superintendent. Every time that I've seen that happen, where somebody from the ranks of foremen have been promoted, they almost always get stuck at the superintendent level 1 or 2 levels. Some of them have made it to the superintendent level 3 positions, but it's very, very rare. And there's 6 levels of superintendent minimum, right? So I'm stressed out about that because I want and care about workers and foremen being able to go all the way. If there's a foreman out there that really wants to become a general superintendent, why not? Let's provide that opportunity to make that happen. And so I've been focused on how can we prevent that hindrance, that block from happening. And I figured it out the other day, because the only thing that ever works is to run foremen or workers through the field engineering program to get them to be superintendent. And some people were arguing with me about that. And we were like, you don't want to go directly from foreman to super. You're going to have some things missing there. You're going to get stuck. But here's why. Here's why it doesn't work. It's because when you go through the field engineering program, you are forced to create a lift drawing and to learn a certain level of plan reading and to learn Revit or AutoCAD. You are forced to do that with an end product. You're forced to learn visual, verbal, and written communication systems because field engineers are forced to do that. Field engineers have to write in their field book. They have to send emails. They have to create signs. They have to work in Bluebeam. They have to work with visual communication. They have to make signs, right? They're forced into that, right? They have to learn personal organization systems. They have to be there on time. They have to work with the project management team. They have to use Outlook. They have to be at certain meetings. They have to learn how to create to-do lists. And they're forced to use computers. They're forced to send emails. They're forced to use Word. They're forced to use Excel. They're forced to use AutoCAD. They're forced to use Revit. They're forced to use Outlook. They're forced to use their calendar. They're forced to use to-do list systems. So these key 4 things that superintendents need, and I'll tell you that superintendent level 2s to get to 3s have to learn a couple of things. They have to learn how to delegate. They have to learn how to communicate and get things outside of their head, right? And they have to really be organized, and they have to know the technology. And those are the key systems. And so how can a foreman become a superintendent and make their way to superintendent level 3 and level 4 and level 5 and level 6 if they don't go back and are forced to use the technology to do lift drawings, forced to use the equipment with survey, forced to learn communication systems by making signs, communicating on email, and communicating verbally in meetings. And then unless they're forced to have personal organization systems, meeting systems, and to-do list systems, and forced to use computers. And the answer is they're not. They're going to get stuck. And so for you foremen out there, if you don't have the opportunity to go become a field engineer, or if anybody wants to create a training where you don't have to become a field engineer, you're going to have to find systems that force you for at least 60 days to learn these systems that are centered around technology, communication, personal organization, and computers. You're going to have to find systems that force that. And so my advice for you is, if you're a worker and a foreman right now listening to this podcast, and you do want to take your next step, then email me at jason@elevateconstructionist.com. We'll get a group of you together. We'll do some webinars, and we'll find systems, or you can sign up for these boot camps, and we will run you through these systems so that you are forced, meaning by virtue of having to produce an end product, you will be forced to learn these things. That way you don't have to be afraid of them anymore. A foreman has to learn those things if they want to be successful and not get stuck at one of the lower level superintendent levels. And the current condition right now is that, foremen are supervising. They know the trade. They know how to do layout most of the time. They're very competent. They're very good leaders. But because they go from that to then being a superintendent, they're just pointing and directing and coordinating and being out in the field. And if they never learn the technology, then we can't go from a superintendent level 2 to a 3. And that's just not going to cut it for me. I want everyone to be able to take their next step as far as they want to go. So the challenge is learn those basics, reach out to me for help, or anyone. I've given you the key. You can just say, hey, I don't need Jason. I'm going to go learn lift drawings. I'm going to go learn survey. I'm going to go learn visual, written, and verbal communication systems. I'm going to get myself a to-do list. I'm going to go get the book, Getting Things Done by David Allen. I'm going to go read that myself. I don't need Jason. and I'm going to force myself to learn computers. That's fine. Go do it yourself. If you need help, reach out to me. But the bottom line is you have to get used to those things so that you have the skills to progress forward. I really hope this helps. I love all of you out there, and I want you to be able to go as far as you want to go. And so this podcast will help you. Please take it seriously. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.